Hi, are you a gifted or twice exceptional adult who feels a bit stuck in your journey? Do you have goals and dreams which you would love to achieve, but you don't know where to start or feel a little bit overwhelmed? Or maybe you have 1,000 ideas, 500 projects, and get distracted by your own thoughts and would love some support on focus and accountability? Whatever gets you stuck, I wholeheartedly believe that gifted and twice exceptional specific coaching will help you unleash your power so that you can be your most authentic gifted self. I recently embarked on my journey on becoming a gifted and twice exceptional coach. So if you are interested in working with me one-on-one, please reach out via email at hello@giftedunleash.com, or you can find more information about my coaching offers on the website giftedunleash.com/coaching. I would love working with you and I would love to get you unstuck. So please reach out and let's get started. Hello, and welcome to Gifted Unleashed, where we talk about the gifted and twice exceptional brain and how it affects our thinking and experience of the world differently. There are a lot of stereotypes and stigma around the term giftedness, and I'm here to challenge those. I'm here to raise awareness and to have a conversation around the topic of what it means to be a gifted and 2-year adult. Common experience among gifted folks is that they feel out of place. They don't quite fit in. They're too sensitive, too intense, too emotional, too overexcitable, and too deep thinkers about the world and about themselves. So if you have been called too much about anything, then this show is for you. My name is Nadia. I'm too loud, too colorful, too bubbly, too bossy, and I love to talk too much. So welcome to my world, and I'm so happy you're here. Hello and welcome back to another episode. Today we have Kate Arms and Tracy Winter on the show, and I'm so honored to have both of them here on my show. It's the first time we record basically a podcast episode with 3 people. Unfortunately, the audio was a little bit off, but I hope you will still enjoy this episode to the max because it has a lot of nuggets, and Kate and Tracy are sharing a lot of insights. Together, Kate and Tracy founded the Neurodiversity Coaching Academy, and they're here today to talk a little bit what that means. What is Neurodiversity Coaching Academy? What are they offering? And why is it needed? And which hole in the market are they filling with their services? So I don't want to say too much. I just hope you enjoy this episode. And there are all the links and the resources in the show notes. And also at the end of the episode, we will mention them again. So enjoy this episode. I'm really hoping this serves you well. Welcome, Tracy and Kate. I'm so excited for both of you to be here. And with our tech issues, we heard that Kate's microphone is picking up a little bit too intensely. So she's trying not to get too excited. And, as gifted people is very difficult, but we're going to try to make this work. The first episode with 3 people at the same call. So welcome for you both to be here. And I'm so excited. Thank you. And I would like for you to introduce yourselves and introduce each other. So the floor is yours. Kate, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So for people who are listening, this voice goes with Kate, and I'm going to introduce Tracy Winter to you first. So Tracy Winter is my co-founder for the Neurodiversity Coaching Academy, and I know we'll talk about that work a little bit. But more than that, she is a friend and a real joy to hang out with and to nerd out on all things human development and neurodiversity. She makes me laugh. She keeps my academic work rigorous. She is more scholarly in training than I am, and so she keeps me honest. Yeah, it's a joy to be here with you, Tracy.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you, Kate. And Nadia, thank you for having us here, first of all. So
Yes.
we appreciate the opportunity. So this is my partner and friend, Kate, with the Neurodiversity Coaching Academy, like she said. I love working with Kate. But the first thing is you notice her brilliance and her ways of putting concepts together in new ways that I hadn't thought of. And that's so fun to then riff off of. We do laugh together. And without that, this partnership would never work. But beyond that, she has wisdom and sort of the bodily wisdom that she brings to all of our work. And so it's this very integrated kind of knowing that informs everything that she does. And it's just gorgeous to get to interact with. And I feel really lucky that we get to do this together.
Oh, and I feel so lucky to have you both here today and tell me a little bit about your journey and how you started working together and what you're offering now in this gifted and neurodivergent space. So, Tracy, do you want to share just a little bit more about how you discovered this topic of giftedness and why you're working in this space?
Sure. So I don't remember not knowing about giftedness. I was identified when I was about 4 and skipped a grade back then. And then my mother got her education specialist, which is like halfway to a PhD in gifted education. And she created and ran a program for gifted students in a school district for 20 plus years. My sister was identified as gifted, super early, just like I was. So like, how did I come to giftedness? I don't know how not to know about giftedness. It's just too early. So I've always been aware of sort of the smarts part of it. And then the more that I dove into it in my graduate studies, the more I learned about all of the other parts of giftedness, the emotional, the, imaginational, so some of the somatic or psychosomatic types of stuff that comes, the Jabrowski intensities basically. And that really helped put so many pieces of a puzzle together for me. So in my graduate studies, my degree's in human development, a PhD in human development. And I wrote my dissertation on the self-concept development in highly gifted adults, sort of the social emotional piece for highly gifted adults and how the reflections of other people form sort of our understanding of ourselves or don't. So yeah, it's sort of like coming into the family business in a way, because it's like, I always thought that I go into my sort of family business of becoming a lawyer like my dad, and it turns out I went the other direction. But yeah, it's sort of all in the family in that way. And then that was sort of my entree into neurodivergence, was getting diagnosed with ADHD in the middle of writing my literature review. And then it sort of snowballed from there. So yeah, so gifted has always been a part of my conception and part of my identity, because I always knew that I was different. It was really obvious that I was different.
Oh, and you already just, talked about twice exceptionality, gifted and ADHD,
Yes.
and that this creates another level of complexity. And we're going to talk about this today. And Kate, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast for the first time. And would you also like to share, how did you tap into this topic? How did you know about giftedness and neurodiversity in general?
Oh, well, thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here. And yeah, I'm happy to tell a little bit about my journey. So I'm the complete opposite of Tracy. I had no idea that giftedness was a thing until I was a parent of a kid who wasn't fitting in. And I was trying to figure out why the things that I was reading didn't apply. And he currently is identified gifted autistic ADHD. So I landed smack in the middle of twice exceptional space. And the developmental pediatrician who worked with us to help support him in the intake interview said, "So, of the people in the family, who does this child remind you of?" And the answer was me. And so, really, I didn't start having language to talk about giftedness until I was discovering how to apply it as a parent. Uh, the the history is all there. Looking back, it's so obvious. I had existential crisis at 5. I had going to school already able to read and knowing the math curriculum for the first 3 years of school before I got to school. I had to take an IQ test to get into a program where the cutoff to get in was the 130 IQ. And I just soared through that. In fact, I was bored through it. It wasn't until I was well into my parenting journey exploring this that somebody said, "Hey, there's a qualitative difference between being gifted and being moderately gifted and extremely gifted and profoundly gifted. You're profoundly gifted. This is why that class wasn't enough for you." And so it's been a late self-understanding process.
Mm.
Yeah.
And how was that for you?
It's been really interesting because I went through so much pain and identity crisis started from the time I was about 15 until I was parenting. And so getting some language around it and getting some vocabulary really just felt like validation of everything that I had been through before. And it just let me breathe. And it let me Google to find my
Hmm.
people.
Yeah. I can relate so much just having this vocabulary, having, the keywords, and you just type that in and something pops up. And that's what I'm hoping to do with this podcast. That people are Googling the words and, the intensities and land here and hopefully get, a whole array of resources for them. And the two of you are building also something, a lot of resources, and building together the Neurodiversity Coaching Academy. How did you two meet? How did this collaboration start? How did it start to bloom?
Well, I'd like to say it's Chris Wells's fault.
Yes, definitely. It's Chris Wells's fault. Yep.
Shout out to Chris.
That's a totally fair statement.
So Dr. Chris Wells of the Dabrowski Center, Tracy, I don't know how you connected with her, but we connected through the work that she's doing with the positive disintegration and the study group that she's doing there and the community that she's building.
Yeah. So, and I connected with her I met her at SING, Supporting the Emotional Needs of the Gifted conference in, I don't know, 2017 maybe, when we were both sort of in the throes of our dissertation, and we connected around that, and Dabrowski, and the rest is kind of history. So, but yeah, so it is Chris's fault to some extent, because Kate posted in Facebook group that's just for that study group that she was interested in getting more hours for her coaching, and was anybody interested? And I was at a point where I just thought, I've been stagnating too long and I really need some development help and get moving again. And as other gifted people will probably relate to, it can be challenging for us to find a therapist or a coach who gets it, who's ahead of us, who, we don't think circles around. And because I knew that Chris Wells respected Kate, I was like, well, let's try this out. So she became my coach, is how we met. And she was my coach. She continues to be my coach, actually. And we keep those hats very separate. And in our first meeting, our discovery call, I said, I really deep down, what I want to do is I want to open a school for neurodiversity coaching, not just ADHD coaching, because I'm already an ADHD coach trainer. And she said, well, me too. And that was kind of the end of it. And then about, I don't know, 8 or 9 months later, she said, okay, are we done with the session? Do you have some time? I said, yeah. So we put a bow on whatever the session was. She's like, so I'd like to build this school and I'd like to do it with you. And I said, okay, let's do that. And that was it.
That was it. Here we are.
What's your recollection, Kate? That's my version of the story.
I don't remember telling you that I was interested in doing it with you quite so early, that first session story, but that also sort of sounds like it probably was about that time. And absolutely, there was this process of, because I was your coach and this was your dream, there was this it felt like a long period where we didn't talk about the fact that this was a shared dream of both of ours, that I came in completely with my coach hat on. And at some point, you were getting frustrated that you weren't making progress on the academy fast enough. And that was when I was like, can we just take the hat off? And can I say, would you make progress on this if we partnered? And that was the moment where we decided that we were going to work together to make this happen. And it's been a delight and a challenge, and we're learning so much. We hadn't even really talked about what either of our vision was until after we decided we were doing it. We did two other things.
It's true. We just started, and I feel really fortunate. This is a testament to us contributing stuff too, but we've gotten along and built on each other and not had it's been psychologically safe, probably because we already had the coaching relationship from go. So I remember we built our first presentation, and at the end of it, we'd spent a lot of time on one day on it, and we kind of looked at each other and was like, that was kind of easy. Yeah, that was fun to do. Oh, thank God.
Yeah. Oh, and like we agree with each other.
Yeah.
We actually do agree with each other.
Yeah. Like, oh, good thing we align. Awesome.
Now that we've advertised a year's worth of masterclasses, it's good to know that we agree with each other.
And we're going to be able to create them together.
Oh, so I know for the three of us, it's a no-brainer that people who are gifted, and especially gifted something else, twice exceptional, neurodivergent, that it's important to have a coach that understands them. But can you maybe just elaborate a little bit more why it is important? Because I talk to people and I try to convince them, if you look for a coach, if you look for a psychologist, look for somebody who gets this topic. And I don't always get through to them. So I would like to use this opportunity to hear from both of you why it is so important.
Do you want to take a first go at it, Tracy?
Sure. So I came at this from, I'm working for another coach school as an ADHD coach trainer. And I kept looking around, and there are several ICF, International Coaching Federation accredited ADHD coaching schools. There is nothing for any other kind of neurodivergence. And my clients were mostly twice exceptional. I was starting to get some that had the autistic overlay as well. So I went and learned a bunch about that. And there are lots of folks who call themselves a coach who aren't necessarily a coach the way that Kate and I think of it, with actual training and principles and ethics behind it, which is part of being part of the International Coaching Federation. And so I just thought this is a gap. We need more people to do this work because I know so many people. Like, I didn't know who to refer to before I met Kate. If I wasn't the right fit for somebody, I didn't know where to send them. There just haven't been, there's more coming up all the time, but there haven't been enough people who understand more than ADHD, within the coaching sphere. So that lens is important because, and the reason that we recommend folks find somebody who does get it is our brains are different. They're more different from most people, and they're very different from each other. And so you need somebody who understands that and isn't going to sort of cookie cutter you or use the tried and true techniques, because tried and true, we've already done that and it hasn't worked, right? So we need to come in with fewer assumptions and really allow the client to be self-directed, with us sort of a little bit guiding, a little bit partnering with them to sort of prompt those new ideas. And a lot of people, we've heard too many stories about neurodivergent folks or gifted folks going to therapists or going to coaches and actually having been harmed because the reflections that they're getting are not aligned. And there can be sort of trauma created if these things aren't handled with the background and the knowledge and the understanding that one, being neurodivergent and gifted, or it's exceptional, choose your language, brings, but also the training of how to be a coach. And so putting those two things together, I think, is where you have your best shot of progress. Okay, I've been talking for a while. Kate, what did I miss?
I don't think that you missed anything. I think there are some things that I'd like to sort of double down on a little bit because I think they're really important. I think the first is in terms of if you are new to giftedness and you're trying to figure out how to work through this, and especially if you're new to twice exceptionality, the reason that you want to go and find somebody who gets it and who has training is that the risk of somebody harming you because they don't get it is actually very high. And I think that that is the most important thing from a client side, that most gifted people, and especially twice exceptional people, so gifted plus something else, actually have been harmed by a variety of things in their lived experience, whether it's parenting techniques that weren't really customized for them, school techniques that weren't customized for them, a social environment that is really not well designed for outliers. And so there's trauma in the system for almost every gifted or twice exceptional person. And so any coach or therapist has to come in with the assumption that they're walking in trauma territory. And it's shocking how many therapists aren't actually very good with trauma. And the other thing that I think is really, really powerful to know is most of the therapists I know who work with this population have a very coach approach to the way that they do therapy. Because a gifted person, once they turn their attention inward and start studying themselves, they learn a lot fast. And even if they didn't start out with an enormous amount of self-awareness and an enormous amount of expertise, they become experts very, very fast. And for a therapist or a coach who doesn't really honor the expertise of their client, it can be really triggering to the therapist or the coach or the gifted individual to move so fast. Like, it's really bad for business that my clients develop really quickly. And so I have to actually be really skilled at knowing that my gifted folks are going to come in, and it may take us a while to unlock stuff, but once we unlock it, they are running. And I can just sort of wave as they go.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for elaborating and reemphasizing that actually, if you don't seek out somebody that's trained in this topic, can cause more harm than actually help you. Because everybody obviously goes with their best intention seeking help, and then the opposite happens, and then they give up. I talked to people who said, "Oh, I went to therapy, but it didn't help." Yeah, because you didn't seek out the gifted specific therapist, or yeah, coaching didn't work out for me. Yeah. Now we know a little bit more why. So you're created the Neurodiversity Coaching Academy. Who is it for and what do you offer?
Okay.
So it's for coaches. We have very explicitly chosen to align ourselves with coaches who want to be connected with the International Coaching Federation model, or at least are happy with their approach to coaching. So coaches who have an alignment with that approach to coaching. What we're offering right now is intended for people who are already coaches. So we're not offering how to be a coach 101 kind of stuff. We're offering how to be a better coach and a more inclusive coach, and specifically looking at the pieces about how to make sure that you're accessible to your neurodivergent clients. And the really cool thing is that if you're accessible to your neurodivergent clients, you're accessible to everybody, because what works for the real customization and trauma-informed and real sensitive work for them works for everybody. So it's really just good coaching training, but with that eye of here's why it's important to have that nuance. And right now, what's currently available is a monthly masterclass on that topic. And we've got coach mentoring and coaching supervision starting in May, and more in the works, but nothing else launched yet. Tracy, did I miss anything?
No. Do you want to drop a teaser?
Go ahead.
I know, I kind of just did. We are working on creating a specialization program. So, big chunk of continuing coach education credits, which we have to earn for the ICF to keep our credential, in like a deeper training program than the master classes are going, so that you can sort of respecialize and say, I'm now specialized in neurodiversity inclusive coaching. So that's coming up. I won't put a date on it, but we're working on it.
So, and if somebody is interested and thinks like, oh, that's something, I want to look out for, do you already have like a sign up link, or how do people stay in contact with, all this information that you just teased out? So there's the monthly class, and then there's the mentor coaching and coaching supervision, and what you just mentioned. How can people stay on top of what's happening?
So right now, we do not have, and this is a lack on our part, an easy place to sign up to get on a newsletter. And so I'll just sort of put that out there that we don't have. What we do have is on the neurodiversitycoachingacademy.com website, direct registration for the masterclasses. And the easiest way to make sure that you stay in the know about what's coming up is to connect with Tracy or me or the Neurodiversity Coaching Academy on LinkedIn. And if you send an email to info@neurodiversitycoachingacademy.com, we can take your email address and put you on the mailing list once we've actually got that set up and started.
We're working on it. We don't have a
it's very close.
We don't have a newsletter yet.
We don't have a newsletter yet.
For people to look at. And usually I ask, my guests to mention this at the very end, where people can find, but you already mentioned it. So I'm like, please, stay connected. Look what those two amazing women are doing and be on top of it when something drops and sign up. If I'm a coach and, well, if you're listening to my podcast, probably they're neurodivergent, but if somebody wants to do your programs, do they have to be neurodivergent themselves or?
No.
We don't have pretty much any gatekeeping. I mean, Kate has just described who we're designing these things for. And also we've gotten some therapists in, we've gotten some just interested parties looking in. So, we're open to everyone. We are not going to give you a neurodivergency test before you come in. We want everybody to have access to this information as easily as possible, which is why we keep the cost of our masterclass so low. And we have recordings that you can buy for the same $10 that we've been charging for the masterclasses. Because the important part for us is more people knowing more about coaching for neurodiversity and inclusiveness so that there's less harm done.
Yeah, thank you. And you just mentioned the masterclass recordings. If somebody missed the last few that were amazing, by the way, they can still access the recording.
Yep, just go to the website and you can order them there.
Awesome. So, Kate, you mentioned what we're doing is basically good coaching. We teach good coaching, and that works for all your clients, but for your neurodivergent clients especially. Do you want to share a little bit what that entails so that also people that are listening are like, what is coaching and why should I get a neurodivergent coach?
Yes.
And what do I need to look for good coaching?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. And I also want to sort of just pause for a moment because I was thinking about this before we got on this call. I actually think that the way that Tracy and I are approaching developing curriculum for coaches reveals our level of giftedness, because what it is that we have done is we have between us collected an enormous number of coaching tools, and we have actually distilled the patterns underneath why these tools work. And so what we're actually extracting is the patterns and teaching our students what those patterns are so that they can then customize them for the very different brains and nervous systems that they encounter while they're coaching. And so what we're doing is actually quite different than most coaching schools, which start with here's a tool, here's a tool, here's a tool, here's a tool, here's a tool. Once you've used enough tools, you can then sort of branch out and expand. And so our giftedness and our pattern recognition and our ability to pull things apart is very much why we're doing what we're doing. And so for gifted people who want to become coaches, like that's a pitch that we actually understand why this works well enough to teach why it works rather than just having to trust that it works, which makes a difference. So really why it works is a coach creates a relationship that is focused on the client, and it's focused on the client in a couple of different ways. One is that we trust that our clients are creative, resourceful, intelligent, able to solve problems. We also assume that if they had been able to solve it by themselves, they wouldn't have come to us. So they only come to us with the problems that they're finding hard in the moment. And so as a coach, part of what we do is we believe that they have the power to solve this problem if we help them figure out how to get unstuck in this moment. And we help create a conversation in which we investigate why is it that they're stuck in this moment and how can they get unstuck. And then once they're unstuck, if they don't already know what to do, then we help them figure out what to do. But quite often, particularly gifted or otherwise neurodivergent clients come to us and they know what it is that they should be doing and they know where the information is, but they're actually just not somehow getting to it. And so often the just getting unstuck is the piece that is really important. And so we do this conversation. We do this sort of conversation homework kind of process. The homework piece, and Tracy doesn't use that word.
I don't use that word with my clients.
But there's coaching session, and there's in between, and then there's coaching session, and then there's in between. And in the in between piece, what makes it coaching is that there's something that the client takes on to do, to try, to think about, to explore during the in between piece. And those experiments in between, then the next session we learn from. And so it's this iterative discovery process that is a mix of self-inquiry and then practice in the real world. Now, you want to add to that, Tracy?
No, there's probably some doubling down I'm going to do, but the way I think of people are often asking, what's the difference between coaching and therapy? And Kate just sort of put her finger on it. In coaching, we have some overlap with therapy in terms of we are looking at awareness. We're, looking at new perspectives. We're excavating a little bit where some limiting beliefs might be or what some thought patterns might be. We're doing it more in the sense of like what's happening now and what do you want to have happen in the future, more than digging into the past and sort of like learning how to deal with that. So that's part one. But coaching can be emotional and coaching can be disruptive and uncomfortable, just like therapy in those ways, because change often is. And then I think the biggest difference is we get to some new awareness and then we say, okay, what do you want to do about that? Right. And so I co-design experiments. That's mostly the client having the ideas and us sort of like, making suggestions or asking the questions that will help them get to even deeper of an experiment. And then they go, like Kate said, the in-between is really important. They go away and do the thing or they don't do the thing. But Kate's right. I don't use the word homework. I use experiments because you can't fail an experiment, right? You're data collecting. So if you don't do the thing, right? You don't do the experiment or what other people call homework, you haven't failed. We have data that whatever it was, there's something missing from it, or there's something that wasn't designed aligned with the way that you are going to make you want to do it. So like that's new data. Let's iterate, like Kate said, and see what to do next. It's not, yet again, not making to a goal. Another word I don't use very often with my clients.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for elaborating. And if I hear correctly, that neurodivergent people get stuck, but sometimes on different ends or in different ways than non-neurodivergent people. So that coaching works for both, for all people. But when you're neurodivergent, you might get stuck on things that for the general population seems more easy to get over, or there's a lot of good advice out there that might not work. Did I understand that correctly? And you help them get unstuck?
Yeah. Yeah, people get stuck. Getting stuck is human. One of the things that sometimes you hear people say about gifted people, but neurodivergent people of various sorts, is that what's easy for everybody else is hard for me, and what's hard for everyone else is easy for me. And so that's very much true, that like whatever's hard for you is what you should bring to coaching. Whatever is easy for you, you don't need a coach for, unless you really want to get like minutely amazing at it. And then you might want to coach. Like there are elite athletes who are trying to get like the little tiny bit of extra performance out of themselves who use coaches. But for most people, it's the places, well, I mean, even for them, that's the place they're stuck. Like they want that little piece. So what you bring to your coach is where you're stuck.
To me, it's not only the content of what they bring that might be different, but the part that we are sort of trying to get at with our classes is the way they maneuver through those stuck places, the way they get to the other side of that is going to be different. And it may be different from a way that they've tried before. So like what my clients tell me actually happens in a coaching engagement, over the course of the whole thing is they learn how to work with their brains in ways that they were not before, instead of like arguing with them, right? Or being in conflict, which makes them then able to unstick themselves that much more readily because their brains are flowing more. So yeah, it is getting past the stuckness, but it's also learning how to get past the stuckness in new ways. Does that make sense?
Very much. So I assume then also the solutions the clients come up with are also a little bit more out of the box than you would see in other coaching sessions, probably.
I don't coach very many not neurodivergent people anymore. I used to, but like not so much anymore. So I'm not sure I can compare. Yeah. But I mean, I always say the best thing about coaching as a job is I get to be curious and surprised all day long. So they continually surprise me with the ideas. What do you think, Kate?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing that I notice is that I will be in a coaching session and I will be hearing what's going on and I'll be asking questions and my brain will be sort of dropping in how I would solve the problem. And then I ask a question that is, what do you think will help you accomplish this over the next week? And they have frequently, my clients have very clear, this is what I'm going to do and I'm going to do it this way and I'm going to do it this way and do it. And it is so different from what I would have done if it was my brain.
Yeah, that's the surprising part, right? Like that's the fun of
Yeah.
surprise. Yeah.
And it's a real reminder about just how different we all are and what works for one of us works for one of us.
And what's the beauty in coaching is that you get coached as the person and not the problem, as I learned, right? And so, as you said, getting unstuck can be very, very individual. And yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that sometimes comes up in the conversation about how is coaching different from therapy is that a lot of people find coaching actually very healing and very therapeutic. And being coached as the person, not as the problem, is the heart of why coaching can have this incredibly therapeutic impact. Because so often, everybody who's trying to help us is so helpful that the fact that we have a problem, they like want to dive in and help us solve the problem.
Yeah. And again, you get a lot of good ideas and suggestions, but if they worked for me, I would have already, applied it as the client, right?
Right? Everybody very generously tells you what they would try in your situation.
And that's one of the things that clients often come in with is they're expecting us to have the solutions. They're expecting us to have the thing for them. And I always say to them, you've Googled this how many times? Like if there were solutions out there somewhere external to you that would work, you wouldn't be talking to me. So I don't have your solutions, but we can figure them out together.
Yeah, I've been doing a bunch of coaching right now recently with parents of gifted and twice exceptional kids. And I've been doing one-off sessions, which is really fascinating to try and figure out how to be really helpful just in a one-off session. And the first thing that I do is I say, I have a little intake form. And I say, on your intake form, you put a huge amount of stuff in. We've got 50 minutes together. We're not going to solve all these problems. And it's a relief to me because it means I don't have to understand your child in order to help you because you don't have time to explain your child to me. In 50 minutes, you'll just get started. But the cool thing is you have expertise about your child. And so all I can do in this 50 minutes is I can help you think about how you think about solving the problems that you will then take with you to experiment with your child. And it's not what people are expecting a parent coach to tell them. They're expecting me to give them some vocabulary to use to talk to their kid that's going to get through to them. And I'm like, There are no words that are like, I cannot wave a magic wand. I cannot give you the phrase that is going to unlock your child is now successful. I wish I could.
Oh, yeah. And I think it's important to set expectations. I get questions like, oh, I have a coaching question for you. Blah, 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 blah. How would you do it? And I'm like, that's not a coaching question. That's a mentoring question. But yeah,
Yep.
how would you approach it? Putting it back. So yeah.
My favorite coaching question. What do you already know about that?
Oh, thank you so much for sharing your insights of coaching and best practices and why it's important to get a neurodivergent coach if you're neurodivergent yourself and what you're offering. And I'm looking forward to all that you're doing. Is there anything else that you would like to share? Something you wish people know or something you wish you knew earlier?
I think the thing that I wish I'd known earlier about being gifted, and this comes into my coaching, and Tracy alluded to it earlier when she just introduced me, when she talked about embodiment and the body. And the thing that I wish that I had known earlier is that the best thing that I can do for my ability to feel good about myself in this world is to make friends with my body.
Do you want to elaborate a little bit more?
So in the gifted context, we get so rewarded for what our brain does. And so we over index on the problems we can solve by thinking through them. And so many of the things that we really want out of life, a sense of ease, a sense of connection with people, a sense of joy, love, those aren't problems you can think your way into a solution of. Those are problems that live in our bodies and our embodied relationships. And I didn't learn to love my body enough to get wisdom from it and use it in those relationships until I was far older than I wish in retrospect.
What's coming up for me is in my coaching even. I wish I had really understood that I'm bringing value by being there with my client. It's not about getting them somewhere. It's not about the solutions they get. It's about relaxing into myself and feeling regulated and just being at the same time as the client is being, stressing about which questions to ask, or will they get to where they want to go, or am I providing enough value? Like those kinds of questions, which I think a lot of beginning coaches, deal with. But if I could have learned that a little quicker, I could have been a better coach more quickly. So, and I'm still learning that because that's what we do, right?
Thank you for sharing that. And I think me, as in my own journey, as starting out with coaching, I feel like, yeah, I'm here to provide solutions, or not to provide solutions, but the client is here. They want a solution quickly, and yeah, not getting trapped in coaching the problem, but really being there for the client and coaching the client and being there. So thank you for reemphasizing this, Tracy. Oh, thank you so much for sharing and for being here. And I will put all the links that you provided me with for your Neurodivergent Coaching Academy website, but also your personal websites or your own business websites for your individual businesses. What is what I meant. I will put them in the show notes, and people can find you and connect with you on LinkedIn and hopefully join your master classes. Thank you so much.
And I can testify from the client role that Kate is an awesome coach. So please check her out, have a conversation with her. She does work, such amazing work that I've never seen from another coach. So definitely check hers out.
And both of you, obviously, you're both open for new clients at the moment?
Yep.
Oh,
Yes, we are.
wow. Okay. So my listeners hopefully listen, and yeah, you might not soon have more slots open. So thank you so much. And
Thank you, Nadja.
Oh,
Thank you
thank
very
you,
much for
Nadja.
having us.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. And if you want to learn more about the Neurodiversity Coaching Academy by Kate Arms and Tracy Winter, then please go to neurodiversitycoachingacademy.com. You will find information on all their amazing online masterclasses, which are really affordable. And you can also buy the replays for the ones you have missed. And they're really, really amazing. And they also offer the mentor coaching and coaching supervision for coaches who want to embark into the neurodiversity space of coaching. So I can highly recommend. And you can also find the link to sign up there on the website and also sign up for their newsletter. So at the time of the recording, they didn't have the newsletter, but now they do have one. So you can also find that information on their website and also more about themselves. And you can also find links to their personal websites, which I also link in the show notes. So I hope you had a wonderful time listening. I hope you learned a bunch. And I'm, again, so grateful for your time, for listening, for being here with us. And I'm wishing you just a wonderful time. And I see you next time. Bye.